Hey there everyone, I'm here to talk about 4.nf.5, which is how do I make equivalent fractions from tenths and hundredths. Starting off by looking in our math notebook, and here in our math notebook you can see these two boards which I hope look very familiar to you. This one right off the dot you should recognize as being a hundredths board, and it is a hundredths board because each one of the squares in this board represent one. I know the shaded ones might be hard to see, but each one of these blocks represents one, and there are 10 blocks in each row, and there are 10 rows, and so this whole board adds up to 100. If you were to count every single little square, it would be 100, so it's called a hundredths board. This one is the same shape, and it basically represents the same amount. It represents 100, but instead of dividing it into ones, they've divided it into tens. So each one of these rows represents 10, and there are 10 of them, and that gets us to 100 as well. So if I was looking at this board right here, I would see that 1, 2, 3, 4 of the columns are colored in, and it's 4 out of 10. So I see that this represents 4 tenths. I can look at this one and see that there are also 4 columns colored, 1, 2, 3, 4. However, these don't represent tens, they represent ones. So I know that if I was to count 4 rows of 10, I would have 40 out of a total of 100 cubes. So remember, the denominator in this one is hundreds and the denominator in this one is tens. For this particular standard, we're talking about how do I get these to be equivalent, because we can see that they are the same amount of space. So I'm trying to make these equal. So what do I have to do to these numbers to get them to equal these numbers? I can see here that what times 10 gets me to 100? It's times 10. So 10 times 10 got me to 100, and whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. Whatever I do to the top, I must do to the bottom. So that means that I would just multiply both the top and the bottom by 10 to make an equivalent fraction. If I was going to do that in reverse and go from ones to tens, it would be division. So then I would be dividing by 10 to go the opposite way. So it would be taking a 0 away. Okay, just like when we practice multiplying and dividing with zeros. So down here you can look that it's showing you, so 3 tenths to get to the equivalent fraction of 30 100ths, I would just multiply both the top and the bottom by 10. Same thing with 7 tenths and 70 hundredths. You multiply the top and the bottom by 10. After you found the equivalent fraction, they're going to start asking you to add them. So here you can see they've given you the problem 5 tenths plus 30 hundredths. We can't add things with different denominators. We have to make them have the same denominator first. So first I have to convert this into an equivalent fraction of 5 tenths, and that's going to be by multiplying both the top and the bottom by 10. So now I have 50 hundredths plus the 30 tenths. I just converted the one that was the tenths, and now I can add, because the denominator stays the same, and then 50 plus 30 is 80. Down below that, I have this kind of handy chart. It just shows you the different tenths. So this is just 1 out of 10. So that would be 1 tenth, 2 tenths, and you can see that it goes on. Just to show you, get you a visual of what tenths would look like. And here's another pretty cool chart that shows you hundredths. So these are all individual. Remember, they represent one. So this one would be 100th because just one of the box was colored in, and 2 of the boxes are covered in here for 200ths, and so forth. So you can see those look a little different. Just remember, when you're working with hundredths, it's just one of the boxes. We're going to go back up here to where we're trying to add the equivalent fractions, and in order to add them, remember, we have to make them equal. So I can't add 7 tenths to 20 hundredths. I have to convert the 7 tenths into hundredths. So 10 times 10 got me to 100, and 7 times 10 gets me to 70. And now I can go ahead and add these together. So 70 plus 20 is 90, and I know my denominator is 100. Okay, down below, same thing. I have 5 tenths plus 30 hundredths. I cannot add different denominators. I have to make them the same. So I'm going to turn 5 tenths into hundredths. So 10 times 10 got me to 100. So 5 times 10 gets me to 50. And when I add those together, I get 80. My denominator stays the same. See if you can try these two. You can press stop on the video and try these on a piece of paper and see if you can get them right. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you. So 6/10, I'm going to convert that into hundreds. So 10 times 10 got me to 100, and 6 times 10 get me to 60. 60 plus 10 is 70, and I'm going to keep the denominator the same. So that becomes 100. Down here, the same thing. 4/10 plus 40 hundredths. I need to convert 4/10 into hundreds. So 10 times 10 gets me to 100, and 4 times 10 gets me to 40. So that will bring me to 80 100ths. Okay, so these are pretty easy. This is just kind of an introduction, and you are going to go ahead on and work on your practice sheets. Good luck.